Hello and welcome back to the Bloomburrow limited set review. This episode, we're looking at the green cards. We're talking about green. Green's had a resurgence in limited the last couple of expansions. Since Murders at Carlisle Manor, green has been, shall we say, back in a big way. It took a couple of years off. But it's been, consistently good. For the last series of expansions, and we'll see if it can kind of live up to that kind of advanced billing. I think the balanced team kind of got the message that green had been underperforming for a long time, and I think they ratcheted it up a little bit, and we'll see if it kind of continues to be moving in that direction. If you haven't been here for one of my set reviews before, I use 5 tiers. They're a little bit different than maybe some of the other set reviews that are out there. I like them. They're simple. Tier 1 good, Tier 5 bad. If you want to read through what the tiers are supposed to sort of ostensibly mean, like go ahead, do it. I'm just gonna start rating cards. Baker's Bane Duo, 1 on a green, 2/2. ETBs, make a food. When you expand 4, it gets +1 until end of turn. This just looks really nice. This is exactly what you want in your 2-drop. Any card that just is a 2-drop that makes multiple permanents when it enters the battlefield, it's just really hard for that not to be like really strong. And this is certainly going to be really strong. I don't really see a world where this isn't one of green's best commons, because it goes in every green deck, and like it's really good in like green black and all that stuff. Any forage based deck, and it works in the raccoon deck to like expend 4 deck, but that's not really what this like. The expend 4 text on this is like nice little upside that also that will come up pretty often. Like this will get to attack as a 3/3 on turn 4 a high percentage of the time, which is actually really strong. That's just nice little upside. I mean, this is just, we're in contention for one of the best commons here. Bark Knuckle Boxer, 1 on a green for a 3/2. When you expend 4, it gets indestructible until end of turn. So yeah, another really good 2-drop. I actually think, so the comparison between this and the last 2-drop is very interesting, because I think this is worse. I don't think it's so much worse that it deserves to be moved down a full tier, but I do actually think the common's better, which is interesting. This is just a 2-mana 3/2. Like, this is, it's a beater. When you expend 4, it gets to attack for free. That's cool. It's just an above rate 2-drop. You're going to play it in every deck. You're never going to cut it. Yeah. That's kind of how I'm grading this card. I think it's fine. I think it's good, but I don't think it's like anything amazing. Brambleguard Veteran, 1 green for a 3/4. When you expend 4, raccoons, including this one you control, get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn. So, obviously I have this card in tier 3, which you're going to look at and be like, man, that's kind of harsh. It's a 3-mana 3/4, which is true. That is kind of harsh. A 3-mana 3/4 is inherently a very good stat line. The problem is double pipped. It's double pipped. I hate things that are double pipped, especially 3-drops and 2-drops. 2-drops obviously are much more apparent, but 3-drops are what I like to call like the sneakiest of being double pipped, because like at 2 it's like very clear that the card's going to be hard to cast, and at 4 it doesn't matter as much. But at 3, it's not necessarily as clear that the card's going to be very difficult to cast, and it suffers the penalty of being double pipped. So, like, this isn't really 3 mana. It's like 3.4 mana, something like that. Like, you're not going to be able to play this on 3 every game, and you really want to play this on 3 every single game because you want to be able to do the expend 4 thing with it on the next turn. And when you can do that, this card is great. Obviously, it gets to attack as a 4/5 and vigilance. That's really strong. The thing is, it doesn't go in every green deck because it, yes, it works with itself, and you could theoretically play it in every green deck, but you kind of want to be getting more than this. You know what I mean? Like because you have to expend the 4, and like you can't always do that when you want, and it's just kind of, I don't know. It's got all these vibes of being like not that good. And it's going to be drafted really highly, probably. Maybe not. Maybe it's going to just be drafted, normally. That would kind of be a bit of an upset in my estimation. So, yeah, we'll see. It's yeah, the double pip. It's really a double pip grade. I would put this in tier 2 if it weren't for the double pip. If it weren't for the double pip, I would definitely put it in tier 2, maybe tier 1. But double pip is really costly on this card. Bushy Bodyguard. 1 and a green for a 2/1 with offspring for 2. When it enters, you may forage. If you do, put 2+1/+1 counters on it. So that's like a lot, right? That's a lot of, because you can forage for each of the tokens. So you could potentially be putting a 4/3 and a 3/3 into play for 4 mana, which is a lot. But you have to have 2 food tokens or a food token and 3 cards in your graveyard by turn 4 to make that happen. There's actually going to be games where that happens. The problem is that this is like not a 2-drop, right? Like this isn't a 2-drop. It's a 4-drop. Like you basically are never playing this on turn 2, right? There's not really anything that makes foods on turn 1. So yeah, you basically are just always playing this on 4. Which is fine, because even if you only forage once, you're getting a 4/3 and a 1/1. But you do have to like give something up to do that. Thinking about it. I'm thinking about moving it up. Because, yes, it's a cost to have to forage twice, but you are getting a lot of stats out of the deal. Like, that's a lot of stats. And even if you only forage once, it's not a disaster. How good of a 4-drop is 4 mana, 1/1, 2, like 2/1 plus 1/1. If you don't have a food token on the battlefield, like 4 mana 4/3 plus a 1/1 as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a food. How bad is that card? Like how, like that's kind of how I feel about this. That's kind of how I think this card like plays. I think it's some like. This is a really tough one. This is a tough one to get right, I feel like. I'm going to leave it in tier 3. It's kind of a cowardice move, but I think I'm going to leave it in tier 3. I do think that it's going to be enough of a cost to forage that in a lot of spots. But if it's but the upside is you have 2 food tokens, and then you have like 7, like, you have so many stats in play. You have 2 creatures that are relevant into the mid to late game. If you have 2 foods in play. But it's like, the problem is not going to be... The problem is going to be having foods in play. Like, you need to have cards that make food. But sometimes you're just going to have 3 things... No, I'm bumping it up. I'm bumping it up. It's happening. It's getting... I've made the decision. I think it's going to happen... Oh, no, but now I'm regretting. Now I have regrets. Now I have so many regrets. Because, like, the problem... What about decks that aren't making enough food? And then you play this and it's just done nothing. But there's the forage angle too, where it's like you can exile stuff from your graveyard, and on turn 4, it's like not impossible to conceive of a game where you have 3 cards in your graveyard. Alright, I'm going to be a believer in this card. Maybe it'll come back to bite me. Cash Grab. 1 and a green for an instant. Mill 4 cards, and you put a permanent card from one of the milled cards. Oh, yeah, okay, I forgot about this. Into your hand. If you control a squirrel or return the squirrel card this way to your hand and make a food token. This is just nuts. Like, I think, so it's now like, this type of card is like, so after just seeing the previous card, it makes me like that grade of that card a lot better, because like, this is just insane with that. You put 3 permanents in your graveyard, you probably are going to get a food, and then, like in most, like I think you're probably hitting like 60% to get a food off of this, and even if you don't, whatever, you can still set up foraging. Yeah, this is just insane. This is just crazy. And it's an instant. This is an instant. Wow. This card is something. This card is really something. Yeah. This card may perform better than Malevolent Rumble. Malevolent Rumble woke people up to a certain extent on like how good that card is. I was always a believer because I like Impulse, but even I didn't think it would be like tier 2 good. We saw that be tier 2. This card is probably even better than that card. At least I think. This card's insane. Clifftop Lookout. The hits just keep coming. 2 and a green for a 1/2 with reach. When it enters, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a land card. Put that onto the battlefield tapped, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So, 3 mana 1/2 that puts a land into play. Now, you don't get to choose which land it is, so it's not fixing. But it's pseudo-fixing in the sense that it gets you closer to your next land, right? Like, it's ramp. It's really more ramp than fixing. But, I mean, That's good. Like 3 mana 1/2 reach draw card. How bad is that? It's like okay. That'd be like a tier 3 card. Now, instead of drawing a card, you're putting a land into play tapped, which is on turn 3 about as good as drawing a card. In some games it's going to be better, and in some games it's going to be worse, but I think on balance it's probably about the same. And this is a thing that you can blink. And ramping to make a bunch of like lands is maybe not always the best thing, but it is at least something you can do. And reach is kind of nice. There's a lot of small flyers around. I mean, there's not tons, but there are ways to buff this card. I don't know. I think the reach is going to come up maybe more than you think. Curious Forager, 2 and a green for a 3/2. When it enters, you may forage. When you do, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So, from all those cards I just looked at, I kind of want to move this up. Because, like, green just keeps going up and up in my estimation here. Like, so this card is not a 3-drop, really, right? You don't really want to be doing this on 3. But, you get any permanent back, and it only costs, like, a food, or 3 cards you don't care about from your graveyard. Wow. That is... Do I want to just move it up? Is this just... This isn't Honest Rutstein, right? Honest Rutstein was like a tier 1 card, almost. This is not that. But... It's still pretty good. Take Eternal Witness. Alright, fine. Get up to tier 2. Every single green card is now in tier 2. Literally every single one. That's not true. But, like, I mean, this is just crazy. The green has started off with some absolute heat here, like common and uncommon. This forage package seems extremely real. Like, this is... you're going to want... There's so many payoffs like this card that, like, the enablers are going to be more premium. But, I mean, this is a premium payoff. Like, this is just a sick recursive card. Like, I don't know. Seems good to me. Druid of the Spade. 2 and a green for a 2/3. As long as you control a token, it gets +2/+0 and has trample. So this is, for all intents and purposes, basically a 3 mana 4/3 trample, but it's not quite that good. 3 mana 4/3 trample would be a tier 3 card. I'm bumping it down because it doesn't always work, but it's going to be on like 75% of the time, I would think, maybe closer to 80% of the time. So you can probably play this, but it is kind of like a French vanilla creature for the most part. And it's fine. It's fine. It's a fine card, but I don't think it's great. Fecund Green Shell. 3 green for a 4/6 reach. As long as you control 10 or more lands, creatures you control get +2/+2. Whenever it or another creature with toughness greater than its power enters, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped, otherwise put it into your hand. So it's a 5 mana 4/6 reach that draws you a card when it enters the battlefield. And when you have 10 or more lands, it just makes your entire team huge. No, I need to move this up to tier 1. This is getting moved up. I don't know why I had this low. This needed to be moved up. I don't know. I guess I just like didn't think that you got to draw the card. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. This is just huge. This is a huge creature that draws you a card and also is like a late game win con. Like sometimes you're just going to play this and you've like top decked it and you have 10 lands in play. And then your opponent just loses because you've just cast like an enormous creature that draws you. Like and it also works with any other creature with toughness greater than its power. Like literally any of them. Yeah, this is just nuts. This is insane. This is just an insane threat. This card's just cracked. And it's huge. It's a 4/6. For the common good. XX green for a sorcery. Create X tokens that are copies of target token you control. The tokens you control get indestructible until your next turn. You gain 1 life for each token you control. So, this is kind of like Pest Infestation. It's obviously not nearly as good as Pest Infestation, because you have to have a token in play. You have to have your opponent not blow you out. And, yeah. You can't actually blow up an artifact or enchantment. But, you do get to gain some extra life, and if you have a very powerful token, you can copy it a bunch. And I don't think it's completely unplayable, but I'm certainly not going to be trying to play it. But I don't think it's like you could do something sweet with this card. It's not like it never does anything. Galewind Moose. 4 green for a 6/6 flash, reach, vigilance, trample. I mean, this is just enormous. So, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, not attack and your green opponents when they have 6 mana open? I guess. I don't know. Like, this thing is just it's a house. So yeah, I like this card. I don't know. Maybe it's just like there's so many good green cards that it's like this card's actually just not necessary and you just don't have to worry about it. But I think it's still going to be good. Hazard Root Herbalist. 2 and a green for a 1/4. When you attack, target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. If that creature is a token, it also gains Death Touch. Yeah, I mean, this is good. It's a good card. It's a good 3-drop. I kind of want to move it up to tier 2, but we have so many tier 2 cards in green already that I don't want to put more there, but maybe I just should. Like, every single green card is just nuts. Like, the whole set is just, what if your 2-drop was good? What if your 3-drop was good? What if your other 2-drop was good? What if your other 3? Like, just so many good 3s that I think I am actually going to bump this down a little bit. Because, you know, it attacks as a 2/4. I mean, this seems strong. This seems strong. I don't know. It does need help. I guess the thing is it needs help. That's where I'll draw the line and keep it in tier 3. Heaped Harvest. 2 and a green for a food. When it enters the battlefield, and when you sacrifice it, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. And you can obviously have the food ability to gain 3 life, pay 2. But, as we've seen, you can forage this, which is just nuts. Because you just forage it, and then you're sacrificing it, and you're getting a land, and you're getting the forage trigger. Like, this, maybe this is just, like, it's another card that I'm like, when I read it a second time, I'm like, am I sleeping on this too? Is every single green card just insane? And it's just like, this forage package just seems unbelievable. Like, this is just so much value. Like, how do you ever beat this? I don't really know. Like, how, this is like a draw 3. I mean, it's not. Like, you get 2 lands. It's fixing and ramp, and also it enables a forage trigger. Yeah, that seems kind of insane to me, honestly. But I'm just going to leave it in tier 3, because it does not impact the board. I'm leaving it in tier 3 because it doesn't impact the board. High Stride. Single green mana for an instant. Target creature gains +1/+3 until and reach until end of turn, and you can untap it. So you've seen this before. Leaping Ambush. Card's playable, but not special. Like, it's fine. You can play it. Seems like you're going to have better green cards to put in your deck to me. Hive Spine Wolverine. 3 green for a 5/4. When it enters, choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It fights a creature token, or you destroy an artifact or enchantment. I mean, this just seems insane. Like, it's another thing. Obviously, it only fights tokens, but that's okay. Like, even just getting rid of an opponent's token is going to be pretty good. And there's going to be token. Like, they're so likely to have a token. And even if they don't, you can, like, one of these other modes is probably going to be good. And worst case scenario, you have a 5-mana 6/5, which isn't great, but it's still pretty, like, it may enable an attack on, you know, when you wouldn't otherwise have one. So, I don't know. I'm putting it in tier 1. Maybe that's too aggressive, but it looks really sweet to me. Honored Dray Leader. 2 and a green for a 1/1 with Trample. When it enters, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each other squirrel and or food you control. And whenever another one of those things enters, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So, I don't generally like these type of cards because they require you having other things. But this one is a little different because it does continue to grow as the game goes on if you have more things. I do think it's probably a little too understated to be amazing, but even this I think is going to be playable. I don't think you're going to need to play it, because to me it just kind of seems like you're going to have stuff to do, so you're probably not going to need to actually do this, but it's going to be good probably when you do it. Not amazing, but good. Hunter's Talent. 1 and a green for a class. When it enters, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. And it has 1 and a green. When you attack, attacking creature gets +1/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. And it also has 3 and a green at the beginning of your end step if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Yeah, this is just really sweet. Obviously the removal spell base mode is good, and then just getting the ability to choose to upgrade it is great, so no complaints for me. This just seems like a really solid class. More good green cards. Even more good green cards. Innkeeper's Talent. 1 and a green for a class. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Single green. Permanents you control that with counters on them have ward 1. 3 and a green. If one or more counters would be permanent or player, put twice that many of those counters on that permanent or player instead. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Like, this is just Siege Veteran. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Siege Veteran. Luminarch Aspirant. I know it's doesn't have a, like, it's probably better that it doesn't come with a body, so your opponent can't just kill it. Like, they have to have Artifact or Enchantment removal, and then, when they do, they, like, and you know what's really sneaky about this? It gets a counter, I believe, when you level up the class. I'm not actually sure about this. No, it doesn't. It doesn't actually get a counter. It just is leveled up. So it doesn't actually have a counter, I don't think, so it doesn't get Ward 1. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure about that. But I don't think it matters that much. This is just insane. I understand that, like, I know, like, I'm kind of breaking my own rule of, well, it needs help, it doesn't work by itself. I mean, this kind of does work by itself. Just the threat of every turn, just pumping a different creature. It's just, like, if you ever have a 1-drop into this, the game is just over. Like, it's just over. Like, your opponent is now so far behind that, and a lot of times what you're going to do with this is wait until turn 4, develop your board like 1, 2, 3 or 2, 3. On turn 4, play this and another 2-mana spell, or you can just play this and level it up on turn 3 as your 3-drop. You could just say, okay, play this, level it up. Now my 2-drop has word 1. It's a 3/3 now. It's attacking you every turn. Again, it's getting bigger, and like that's like really good. So this card is just insane. And sometimes you can just level this up to level 3, and then like that's great. You know, like if you can do that. Keen-Eyed Curator. Green for a 3/3. As long as there are 4 or more card types among cards exiled with it, it gets +1/+4 and trample, and it has pay 1 to exile target card from a graveyard. Now, you will notice I have rated this card tier 2, despite the fact that it is double pipped. So this is rare for me, because I don't like double pip cards. However, this is above rate. It's a 2-mana 3/3. That's an above rate card. It also has a very relevant ability of being exile cards from graveyards, given that forage is like sick. And in the late game, it's just going to be an enormous threat. Like I can see a reality where like you play this, you know, on your opponent's turn, exile a bunch of cards. It becomes a 7/7 trample, pretty good, and then you're just kind of off to the races. So that's why I like the card. I don't think it's busted or anything, but it's definitely a good card, I think. Just don't, it may not be a 2-drop, you know? Not your 2-drops, 2-drop. The thing is, playing this off curve isn't even the worst, because you can start exiling things if you, like, have to wait till turn 4 to play this. It, you know, exile 2 things, and then on your turn exile 2 more things, and it's a 7/7. Long Stalk Brawl. Single green mana for a sorcery you can give to tap fish. Choose target creature you don't control and target creature you do control. Put a +1/+1 counter on the creature you control if the gift was promised. Then those creatures fight each other. Yeah, I mean, simple fight spell. I think giving a gift to do this is not the best. There are some circumstances where you can give gifts and then like eat their tokens or whatever. Sure, whatever. So I think it'll be fine, but not amazing. Sorcery speed, fight spell. Not the best. Generally not the best ever. Lumra, Bellow of the Woods. 4 green for a star Vigilance Reach. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. When it enters, mill 4 cards, then return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. There's a 6-mana 6/6 with Vigilance and Reach, and puts a couple of lands on the battlefield, probably. That's okay. So, I mean, it's big. Not really anything to complain about. I don't think you want to be taking this, like, super early, but it's a good card. It's just a big creature with Vigilance and Reach, and that's kind of it. Yeah. Mist Breath Elder. Single green mana for a 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Otherwise, you may return this to its owner's hand. So you are forced to return another target creature if you have one. If you don't, you can choose to return this. I don't know. It's just... This is so weird. Like, this is such a weird card to try to evaluate, like, how good it actually is. You can see that I've given it the Coward's grade of a tier 3. But sometimes you're right. Sometimes the Coward's grade is the right grade, you know? I'm sort of a known not really believer in the Frog deck. I don't really think it's going to be that good. But, I mean, like, I think in that deck this could be fine. It requires some work to build around, but not a ton of work, just because it's like a, you know, 1 mana 2/2. I don't know. We'll see on this one. I think it's okay, but not the most exciting card ever. Overprotect. 1 on a green for an instant, target creature you control gets +3/+3, trample, hexproof, and indestructible until end of turn. Man, that's a lot of stuff. Like, so we've seen the 2 mana +3/+3 and trample. That's been pretty good. Like, they've printed that a couple of times recently, and it's been basically tier 3, almost a tier 2 card by itself. And now you get hexproof and indestructible on top of that. That's kind of a beating. And, yeah, that just seems really good. Like, it seems like a really good trick to me. This is probably the best one in the set, I mean, I think. Like, this is just absurd. Like, it's just so much extra value. Paw Patch Formation. 1 on a green for an instant, choose 1, destroy target creature with flying, destroy target enchantment, draw a card, create a food. I might have this too low too. Generally I'm down on these type of cards, but the buyout, the mode of just draw a card, make a food on turn 2 is like actively something you want, given that all the forage cards are good. So that's I mean, and art enchantment removal is kind of relevant. Creature with flying removal is kind of relevant. Has extra relevance in this set. I'm going to move it up. I'm going to move it up. I mean, I can't possibly be right about all these, right? They can't all be tier 2. Surely the green cards aren't all tier 2. I can't just be going insane, right? There's no way this is actually true. I can't just be like, this, I don't know. I must be wrong on some of these, but they all just look really good to me. Paw Patch Recruit. Single green mana for 2. On Offspring 2, trample. When a creature you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than that creature. So, you know, 1 mana 2/1 trample, pretty good. 3 mana for a 2/1, two tramplers, also pretty okay. The mode of your opponent targeting stuff, like your opponent has control over that, so like you're getting some extra value a little bit, but you know, they get to choose when that happens. Still a good card, but I don't think that extra mode is maybe the best. Maybe I'm underrating it and this is tier 1. Because it sure seems like a good card. It just kind of like has problems of like, oh well, then you're going to get, but it has to be not that creature, right? So, oh, other than the creature that's being targeted. No. That's yeah. So if you do pump it on 3, like they aren't going to be able to get out from under it. But they can just not target your stuff sometimes. Sometimes they have to target your stuff, but a lot of times they can just not target your stuff. But sometimes they can target your stuff. Thinking about it. I'm gonna leave it in tier 2. Just let the meme keep going. Peerless Recycling. 1 on a green for an instant. Gift a card. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If the gift was promised, instead return 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. So I think this is a worse recursion card than the Forage Rabbit thing. For several reasons. Giving your opponent a card to get back 2 cards is, that second card better really be worth it, is all I'm saying. Like, you really better be getting the full enchilada there. There are situations where you could want to do it. I'm not saying it's impossible that could happen. I just think there's probably better ways to go about this type of effect. Still playable, I think, but not at a rate that's super efficient. Polywop. 3 and a green for an instant. This costs 1 less to cast for each frog you control. Target creature you control deals damage equal to twice its power to target creature you don't control. So, yep, solid removal spell if you have like a frog in play. You really want to have 2 frogs in play for it to be good, but that is certainly possible. Like, it's the thing you can have happen, and yeah, I think this is fine in frog-related decks, but in non-frog-related decks, you're never going to play it. So, Rust Shield Rampager, 3 and a green for a 4/4 offspring 2. So this creature can't be blocked by creature's power 2 or less. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a big thing that can't get double blocked easily. Seems good. It's a good 4-drop. It expends 4 for people that care about that. It does also allow you to make a 2/2 or another 1/1 that can't be blocked easily. Sure, seems fine. Yeah, just seems fine. Like, you can play this card. It's gonna be good, but it's not ever gonna be amazing. Scrap Shooter, 1 green for a 4/4 with reach. It has gift a card. When it enters, if the gift was promised, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. So, if they have something busted in play, you pay this. If they don't, you're just getting a 4 mana 4/4 reach, or 3 mana 4/4 reach that is double pipped. It's double pipped. So, you know, not necessarily a 3 mana. So yeah, that's kind of how I've rated it, is mostly a 3 mana 4/4 reach, which is a good card, but not busted. Season of Gathering, 4 green for a sorcery. It's a paw print card. So 1 paw print, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains vigilance, and trample and vigilance until end of turn. I guess it's not targeted, but whatever. 2 paw prints, choose artifact or enchantment, destroy all permanents of the chosen type. 3 paw prints, draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. So you could, like, put 2 +1/+1 counters on something, draw like 4 cards or 5 cards. That's pretty good. The problem is that it's a 6 mana sorcery. I don't really know how to evaluate this card. This is a card that I'm very unsure about how good it's going to be. I think it may be worse than it reads, just because, like, it seems like, oh, you get to draw all these cards and whatever. But I think the best mode is probably just going to be, like, put a bunch of counters on stuff and smash for, like, 10. That seems pretty good. And also, the ability to destroy artifacts and enchantments is nice. I think this is a good card. I just don't think it's, like, a must-have. Like, I think it's a lot worse than, like, a lot of the... Like, I do think this is worse than the 2-drop common. Yeah, I don't know, that's kind of my take, but we'll see. I think this will be okay. Sticky Tongue Sentinel, 2 and a green for a 3/3 reach. When it enters, return up to 1 other target permanent you control to its owner's hand. So, this is like we've had these type of effects before where you can return something to your hand. Usually, like, this one's bigger than those effects have been in the past, but green doesn't really have a ton of permanents that you want to be doing this with, so yeah, I think it's fine, but I don't necessarily think that it's going to work a lot. Again, there's kind of like all these, basically all the green, like all of the cards that are like frog, bounce, ETB stuff, they all rely on you having the 2-drop that draws a card when it enters, and this is pretty good with that card and pretty not good with everything else. So yeah, tier 3. Stocking the Pantry, single green mana for an enchantment. Whenever you put +1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, put a supply counter on this, and you can remove a supply counter from it and draw a card by paying 2. So the problem is that this doesn't actually impact, like, the board. Like, you are paying 3 mana to draw a card up front, right? Your first card is 3 mana, then you get to pay 2 mana for each additional card. There's ways to put +1/+1 counters on things, as we've seen. I just think that this is not the reward you want to be getting from doing that. I feel like there's better ways to go about that, and this is kind of a 1 mana don't do anything, which generally doesn't tend to bode super well for it. Again, I do think that there's, like, a deck that you could try to make this work with, but I think it's probably going to be slightly suboptimal. Sun Shower Druid, single green mana for an 0/2. When it enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and you gain 1 life. So it's a 1 mana 1/3. You probably, I doubt you want to play this on turn 1. Maybe you do. I don't know. It's a thing you can bounce, so there's that. Yep, if you have stuff that gets really good if you bounce it, this is a thing you could bounce. I think that for the most part, you are only going to be playing this in like the Frog bounce deck. If that deck is playable, this card will be playable, and if that deck is unplayable, this card will probably be unplayable. Tender Wild Guide. 1 and a green for a 2/2 with Offspring for 2. It has tap to add 1 mana of any color, and it has tap to put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And the Offspring also gets the ability to do this, which is sick, because, like, I mean, this is just so good. It basically has and you can tap as like an instant, so you can just wait, hold up mana, and then just be like, make my creature bigger, make a creature, you know what I mean? That's just insane to me. This card just seems so sick. Like, it's a good 2-drop. You probably don't even need to play it on 2, and would probably prefer to play it on 4. And it, like, it's just does a lot, does everything, it does it all, you know. It makes mana, it gets big, it's a relevant threat, all that stuff. Thornvault Forager, 1 and a green, 2/2. Tap to add green mana, forage, add 2 mana in any combination of colors, and you can pay 3 and a green and tap it to search your library for a squirrel card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Yep, just another really, really good mana dork, right? The debate between this and the first one in terms of which is better. I think the first one's better because of the Offspring. It's just easier to get that one to do its thing, whereas this one, there's a little more finick to it. It isn't just fixing your mana by itself. It needs a little bit of help to fix your mana. And the ability is 4 mana, 5 mana, because this is tapping 2, I guess, kind of. It's 4 mana, really. And that will come up sometimes. It will. It'll come up more than you think. Like it is actually like a relevant ability that's good. However, I think that it's slightly worse than the other mana dork because it doesn't just quite do the thing by itself, and it's easier to like 1-for-1 with. 3 Tree Root Reaver, 1 and a green for a 1/3 to tap for 1 mana of any color. Yep, should be a fine card. We saw Root Rider Fawn that did this but worse, and it was okay. Nothing special. I don't think it's premium or anything. I don't think it's going to be like Green's Best Common or anything. It's a good 2-drop. Gets you to 4 mana. Clearly worse than the other mana dorks, but still fine. 3 Tree Scribe. 1 and a green for a 2/3. When it or another creature you control leaves the battlefield without dying, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So this is a cool little frog thing. It's just a good, 2-drop by itself. And, there's going to be lots of ways to have this happen. It just, is the thing that it's trying to do good. And the answer is, my guess is probably not amazing, but maybe it's like doable. And this would be sort of the thing is, you could just play this in I don't know, you wouldn't really want to play this in like just a green deck, but you could play it in just a green deck as a 2-mana 2/3, and it's not a bad card. Tree Guard Duo. 3 and a green for a 3/4. When it enters, until end of turn, target creature you control gets vigilance and gets +X/+X when X is the number of creatures you control. So this is a pretty big buff, right? So it's at least +2/+2 if it does something. Maybe I want to bump this up a tier. Vigilance and +X/+X. Yeah, I'm going to bump this up to tier 3, actually. The worst case scenario is that, it does nothing. Like, the worst case scenario is it does nothing. And it's just a 4-mana 3/4. But the thing is like, that's not going to happen very often. Like, an empty board is going to happen, but there's so many things that make tokens that it's going to be really hard for your opponent to just, like, clear your entire board and make it so this doesn't do anything. And because Offspring exists, you can just use an Offspring card on turn 4 instead of playing this on turn 4. So it's not like you're not going to have other things to do with your mana on turn 4. And that makes this a little bit better. So I actually think this is going to be okay and not bad, because this is a lot. Like, if the creature you're targeting and one other creature, which is, I think, achievable. That's an achievable thing to have. +3/+3 vigilance is good. Like, that's a good buff. Like, you're probably getting in for like 5, which is a lot of damage, and like you're getting back on blocks too. And this thing blocks pretty well, and you can bounce it and flicker it and whatever. This is a good thing to flicker, obviously. Yeah, it just seems solid. Treetop Sentries. 3 and a green for a 2/4 reach. When it enters, you may forage if you do draw a card. Maybe I should bump this up too. I'm not going to, because it is, like, there's other ways, like, there's other good things to do with forage, but, I mean, this looks sweet too. Like, foraging seems like a thing that you're going to be able to do pretty much every game if you get the good commons, and the really, really important commons are, of course, the things that make food tokens. This is going to just sort of be a good way to use one of your food tokens. But for the thing about forage is, like, it doesn't have to just be food tokens. The fact that you can exile 3 cards from your graveyard means that in some game states you're just going to be able to still forage even when you normally wouldn't be able to. And yeah, I think that's just really good. Valley Might Caller. 6 green mana for a 1/1. Trample. Whenever another frog, rabbit, raccoon, or squirrel you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on it. I mean, this is just Evolving Adaptive, basically. Evolving Adaptive was nuts. This is going to be also nuts, I think. Yeah, it doesn't matter what the size of the creature is. If you, like, God forbid you ever cast a creature with Offspring, you get 2 counters on this. Like, man, like, that's just crazy. Like, it's just so good. This card is just insane. And the final green card, Wear Down. Is it, I think, the only green tier 5 card, I think. So green and a 1 and a green for a sorcery with gifted card. You can destroy an artifact or enchantment. If you promise the gift, you destroy 2 artifact or enchantments. This is just too situational, and there's too many other ways to deal with artifacts and enchantments that are main deckable for me to want to run this. Like, we saw the, like, uncommon that just does basically this, but can also cycle, and is also an instant. So, yeah, this card just seems really unnecessary and not something you're going to want. And that's green. I mean, contending with white for best color, I think it's between green and white, in my estimation, at the start of the format for what I think the best color is going to be. Just so many good uncommons and uncommons in green. Like, and the rares are good too, and, like, every single green card is just insane. Like, this just seems like a recipe for a very, very strong color. So, green back on top is what I'm saying. Check out the other set reviews if you like the set review. They're just like this one, but some of them are less optimistic about the color than this one. But they're similar to this one. So, see you next time.